Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is an airport scenery review of London City Airport EGLC in Great Britain. This package is available in the marketplace and costs around 19 Canadian dollars, which is approximately 15 US dollars or 13 euro. The download size is 2.46 gigabytes, while the size on disk after installed is 3.3 gigabytes. This airport is in the heart of the city, according to Orbix, on one of the most exciting approaches in Great Britain, taking you over the iconic centre of merry old London. Orbix also tells us that we have HD PBR textures for the airport and surrounds with detailed ground poly that includes the Excel building and Tate & Lyle sugar factory. Let's have a look. This is the location of the airport on the map and its corresponding low en route chart. And this is the 10.9 or airport diagram for the airport, along with the before and after in the world map in Microsoft Flight Sim. The displays thresholds, runways, overruns, taxiways, and general layout and taxi signs are all correct. 2 windsocks are missing according to the Jeppesen chart. Only 1 windsock is in the airport and it is in the wrong location. The taxiway edge lighting is broken along with the taxiway lights themselves. The taxiway lead-on-off lights are all incorrect, and I will get to that later on in this video. The PAPI lights are all working but seem to be on the wrong glide slope. They are at 5.5 degrees on the Jeppesen chart but seem like they are the standard 3 degrees in the scenery. Both PAPI lights are on the correct side even though one is installed in the non-standard configuration, so good job there. In general, it's a pretty decent sized scenery package. You can see just center of the screen now the sugar factory, which is clearly a landmark that you would want to see if you knew the area. And as we approach sort of the approach on runway 09 into the water area, in the distance there's cranes and there's a large warehouse on the right, train, and a number of buildings that are all modeled in this sort of island area of the airport pretty well. I like the models in this. Coming from the other side, and to give you an idea of the scope, you can see on the left the cranes and the large factory and the boat in the water there, and a number of buildings modeled on approach to runway 09 towards the airport. You can also see a number of buildings on the right and leading up to the sugar factory here, and of course now the terminal buildings and the train that runs through here, all the way to the edge of the water in the far distance there. In general, the area of the airport and surrounding on approach from either side look really well from the air and hold up, especially if you're flying heavies and not GAs. The taxiways and the grass areas especially look great. Even though there's some lower end textures, other developers should take notice because they've covered it with that grass material that I've noticed in a number of airports in msfs, and it looks so much better when you do that. Some of the taxiway surfaces, if you look at the yellow lines, you can notice they look a touch low res, almost like the texture itself is a high res texture, but it looks like it's been upsampled in some areas, and I think those could be better. All the models that are present in the airport region of this scenery are really good and detailed, and as good as really any other scenery package at the moment. And this is the models directly in the airport area. And essentially these are the models you're going to be dealing with when you're taxiing up to and taxiing around the airport. So these are the most important models, and I like them a lot. They're very detailed, they look great, they feel alive and have a lot of depth. A little bit closer to the terminal here, you can see the detail in the terminal buildings and the parallax textures and the transparencies on the window. It really does look good, and we'll take a look at the control tower here, and again you can see the transparencies and the modeling work. It all holds up really well and is impressive. And just a number of assets in the far corner of the airfield you can see that they've added just to give it a little bit of a feeling that it is a living airport. And keep in mind that any of the reviews that you watch that I do, I have all of the AI ground and air traffic or assets off so that anything that you see on the ground isn't Microsoft Flight Simulator, but instead is the scenery developer. This here is the default night lighting for the default scenery. One thing to notice is in the top left corner there, see the yellow lights for the last, it should be 2,000 feet of the runway. The runway edge lighting is yellow. None of the airports seem to get this correct, and in the scenery package itself, and we'll flip to the night lighting in the scenery package now, and you'll notice that the lights, the runway edge lighting is all white now. So I rarely see a developer get this correct. In this case, the night lighting looks great in the terminal buildings, for instance, but is absolutely wrong when it comes to the runway markings, and the taxiway markings themselves are a complete mess. You can see all of those blue lights, which are supposed to be taxiway edge lightings. Those are supposed to give you an indication of where the edge of the taxiways are so that you don't taxi off of the paved surface. I don't know what's going on here, but I know if I landed at night and there wasn't enough lighting to see the taxiway, I wouldn't know where to start with this. This is just wrong, and it's broken, and it's a complete mess. You also have this building here, which seems to have been built through the train tracks leading into these stations. So I don't know what's happening with that, but that's clearly incorrect. There are a number of nice models on the periphery of the airport leading onto approach, and obviously these buildings are landmarks that if you were in the area you would understand and expect to see them. Models like the sugar factory here would look strange if they weren't there, so that's great that they're modeled. They're not going to win any awards, the textures are simple, but unless you're flying around these specifically, these all look great on approach. This one you get a lot closer to than the sugar factory, and it's modeled a lot nicer. And you will run into some of these low ground textures with a lot of these buildings, but I think that's fine. These are outside the airport area. You're not going to be taxiing around here. This airport is pretty completely surrounded by either buildings or walls, and all of the buildings and walls that surround the airport, essentially the area that you're going to be taxiing in, are excellent models, and they look really detailed. And this is a good indication here. You can see that same building with the low texture, but you can't see the ground texture from the taxiway areas. They're all either walled or excellent textures. So within the context of how you will operate within this scenery package, I think this is an excellent and very detailed package. And all of the models that maybe don't hold up, you're not going to be taxiing around. You're going to be flying. And from this perspective, from the runway looking towards the terminal buildings, you can clearly see that even though there are a number of low textures in around that sugar factory, you can't see them from the runway or the area operating in the airport. So like I said, the models in the airport are excellent. They're very well detailed. There's great assets in this airport, and the ground textures and grass look awesome. And this is an indication of what it would look like on approach to runway 27. So you can clearly see what it would look like in the air with all of the assets in around this airport. And we will flip around and do an approach to runway 09 through the water area here and towards the terminal on the right and the sugar factory. The building that is blocking the train is probably the biggest issue here because it can be seen from the air. And the second biggest problem with the scenery package is the night lighting, which is just completely wrong and broken. All in all, I do like this scenery package, but I think the developer absolutely has to address the night lighting because you can't really operate out of this scenery package at night. It would be confusing, for me anyways, because I would understand what the night lighting is supposed to be, and I would be trying to follow the taxi indications at night. And if you did that, you might end up on the grass or incurring onto a runway at night, which would be extremely dangerous. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. That is my scenery review of London EGLC, and we'll see you next time.